Hello, good morning. I've been reading from Price Pritchard's book, U Squared. Just read to you a chapter. They're very short, but he writes so clearly about what we're actually leaving on the table every day. So he says here in the promise, are you ready for this? Right now, in this moment, you're capable of exponential improvement in your performance. You can multiply your personal effectiveness, hit new heights, and shatter old achievements. The results you can have will be hard for you to imagine. What does that mean? He writes a whole book on the idea that we can multiply our effectiveness by squaring it. What's that? That's infinite. And so here's a guy who's got a PhD in psychology, who is a management consultant, who writes a book that my mentor, Bob Proctor, he read it all the time because it is so on point. It takes out all the what a lot of people spend a lot of time on, the spiritual element, and he just talks about quantum leaps in performance, which, if you think about it, it's basically the same thing. Um, so you don't have to settle for things as they are now. When I read that, I loved that idea because I had a business that wasn't hitting the goals that I wanted, and I was frustrated because both my wife and I were working really hard in this business, and it was only growing in incremental stages, and that drove me literally balmy because although we were growing, although we were earning the money, it wasn't performing as I wanted to perform. And there are so many people that are in that position. So I figured out some things that help uh, create a quantum leap. So that's what I'm talking to you about right now. So you can change dramatically if you're ready. Life's prepared to give you a breakthrough experience, and that's what I was looking for, is a breakthrough experience. And I've read that much about it, and I've done that many courses on creating massive jumps and step changes in businesses and so on. But I wasn't experiencing it. So that was where the frustration was, because I knew that it was possible. So you can jump to a higher orbit of achievement, live the dream, enjoy a complete different plane of success. So whatever you're experiencing right now, that can be leveled up. And it all starts with balancing. There is a balance between the internal and external focus. Now, the challenge we have is when we get really good at solving problems with external focus, the problem arrives. We've been in business for a while. We know how to fix it. So we repeat every day. The problem uh, rises its head up. We solve the problem. The next problem arrives. We solve the problem. And those of us that get, or people that get really good at that, earn good money. But there is a balance between external and internal focus. And the reason for that is if you do that for too long, which a lot of people do, they become really good at it and they don't do enough internal work and simply slowing down and asking themselves the question, am I going in the right direction? A really important question to ask yourself all the time. The world's changing at such a rapid pace. You know, I love listening to members of parliament all over the world are talking about the disruption that's going to come with AI. And some people fear that, some people are oblivious to what's happening, and some people are actually embracing that whole idea. However, that is a thing, and it will disrupt industry and business as we know going forward. Absolutely, but if you're not doing the internal work, you're just focused on doing the external work that you are comfortable with because you're really good at it, then you may be leaving yourself exposed or vulnerable to a massive shift coming in the future in whatever you do. So you have to continue be asking yourself the question, what do I need to do internally so I can effectively manage who I am. So I keep saying this, and it's it all makes complete sense that our emotional state drives our behavior, and whatever our behavior is gives us our results. So therefore, if you're not learning to or investing enough time managing your emotional state, your attitude to life, your attitude to personal growth, and understanding of who you are, the truth of who you are, not this physical body and the degrees you have and so on, not that, who you are and why you're here. Uncovering that. When you uncover that, then everything becomes really easy. It's not, you start to let go of all the fussing and fuming that we get ourselves wound up and bent out of shape of. He goes on to say here, also, you don't have to be content with improving things incrementally or gradually. So this is an interesting idea. We've all bought the idea that a 10%, if we're doing a forecast and we're budgeting for our business, let's put on 10% growth because that's reasonable. Really, if you think about it, that's just a paradigm. That is a conditioned way of thinking where there's very logical, practical people that will say, yes, it makes sense, and they can do an Excel spreadsheet to prove it. That is absolute. We can live our lives like that. But if you're honest with yourself, there'll be some people listening to this that frustrates them. Why? Because you're not just a rational human being. You have an imagination that is looking to what could be possible. So there's two different ways of looking at everything. Well, there's many ways of looking at things. But as a human being, we can imagine what's possible, and we can be rational, and we've got a mental faculty. It's our reasoning faculty of our mind. But if that's dominant, then it's absolutely suppressing the imagination. So what I suggest, here's a game that you can start to play. So if you find that if your internal work is taking a bit of a back seat at the moment, you can start messing with it and just have a bit of fun. It shouldn't be a serious thing. It is a serious thing because it actually impacts your life, but make it a fun, make it a game. You can play the game of what's possible, what could be. Okay, so let's just play the game. The rules of this game, it's a new paradigm that you're going to set up for yourself. And the rules of that game are the rational mind of how to has to stay out of this game. Okay, so you park your rational mind saying, how's that possible? Leave that alone. And you just start playing this game. There's only two things you have to do with this game. One is imagine what you genuinely would love your life to be like, say 12 months and beyond. Just imagine what you would love it to be. What is it that's on your heart? And if it's ridiculous, write it down on a piece of paper. And you might even go to the extent of writing it on a gold card and carry that around. That's your pocket billboard. This is the game you're playing of what could be. Okay. So then the second rule of the game is a lot of fun. The second rule of the game is every day you are looking for a surprise to show you that you're moving in the direction of what could be. What that does is that surprise is an interesting emotion because it's one of the main emotions that we have, but it's a very short emotion because we have a surprise and that's it. It's gone. Then it goes into other emotions, either good or bad. So if you're looking for good things to be surprised about what you can imagine is possible for you, then what you're doing is you're starting to move into every day anticipating that pleasant surprise. And that's the game. So that's the game. And if you play it and enjoy it, just keep doing it, because what it does then, it starts to develop the internal work that needs to be done. You're good at what you're doing in problem solving. That's practical, that's logical, that's rational, that's real, it's physical. You can touch it, and you can, look at the bank account, and you can look at the accolades that you've got and things like that. But it doesn't necessarily, all that success doesn't necessarily give you a sense of fulfillment. Whereas when you start playing this game and you apply it to your life with some persistence over time, it'll lift the spirits, because it's it's starting to work on your emotional state, and you're becoming your own coach. Basically, you're coaching yourself into a different level of life. So he says here, just as your level of performance can improve drastically, so can your rate of accomplishment. Furthermore, the U squared formula requires far less effort than you've given in the past. Now, here's the interesting thing. That's so, so I was frustrated with my business. It was only growing incrementally every year. And, we were trying to get past the million, then, on beyond that and so on. And we got past that, and it was still just what I consider, it wasn't pathetic in terms of our earnings and that, but for the effort that we were putting in, the return was just frustrating at the age I was. And so then all of a sudden we decided, look, let's start looking at selling it. And then that story was interesting, because one valuation came and we said, nah, we're not interested. Then I said, look, I'll go and look in the industry. And I couldn't find a guy's card. We want to phone around, otherwise our staff might hear what's going on. I get a phone call out of the blue from a company that I hadn't considered calling. The CEO calls me. Then when the offer came, it was 4.5 times what the valuation was. So this is where there was no more effort. So this is where he says here, furthermore, U squared formula requires less effort. So there was no more effort. We got the valuation, and within a 6-month period, no real change to the business, just a change in the perception of that buyer, the value of the business, and what a business valuer valued it at. Then all the effort was just looking at the document saying, yeah, we'll sell it for that. That was a step change in our lives. So that can happen for anyone when they start to apply this game of what could be. Because I actually wrote down, some people might say, you're making this up. Well, I didn't make it up. I wrote it down, because this isn't the first time this sort of thing's happened to me. So I understand it now, because I study the laws of success, and that I understand how it kind of works in quite a lot of detail. But I wrote down a number in between getting a phone call from that CEO and then them doing their due diligence and so on, and working out an offer. I wrote down a number. That's what I will accept at. And that was the number that was on the offer to us. So I'm saying this because all of this material, if you're ignoring it at the moment, if you're not doing the internal work to understand, or ask yourself and keep yourself thinking what could be, what's possible. If you're spending all your time just focused on external what's already created, and then dealing with the next problem because you're really good at it, there'll come a point, it's like kicking a ball down the road. The ball will still be with you when you get down the road, and you're going to have to deal with this feeling of, I've got all the success, but there's no fulfillment. What's that all about? Well, this is what it's about, because you're not doing enough internal work. And he goes on to say here, you haven't been reaching your full potential. So far, you haven't even come close. I love that, because I don't know about you, but when I was growing up, I think my mother used to read this sort of stuff. She said, you will never ever reach your full potential. And I have no idea what she meant by that, because I was giving it all I could. And I thought, well, how much harder do you have to work? Well, this is not the point. That's when we're so locked into the external work, we think, and the external work becomes hard work. We have to figure it out with our intellect. Well, when you start tapping into your imagination, where do you think inspired thought comes from? But if you're not spending enough time in your imagination, imagining what could be for you, what it is that you want. And it might be that you might want to double your business. It might be you might want an exceptional step change in the career that you have. But there are thoughts and ideas that are fixed in your paradigm, in your subconscious mind, that are operating without you even being aware of it. You're going into every day with this, what you understand right now, and you're operating from that. And most of that operation, the majority of it, is habitual. It's just it's your emotional mind that is driving your behavior. Your emotional mind, what is that made up of? Well, it's your habits, it's your routines that you move into every day. It's the limits of what you believe is possible for you right now. It is your self-image, how you perceive yourself right now, and how you perceive yourself in the world. And no one can outperform what they believe or their self-image. No one can. That's your limits. That's the comfort zone that you understand right now, but you can always expand it. And that just comes through new information, but applying that new information, the application of new information. So it's getting new knowledge, new understanding, and the application of that. It's always about taking action, but it's not about more hard work. That's the point I want to make. So no matter how you wish to measure success, regardless of how you define achievement, you have barely scratched the surface of what you personally can accomplish. It's a sweeping statement that he's made here, but that's because he understands that every single human being is made the same way. We have enormous ability locked up within us. We're the only ones who can who can control our emotional state. So if you're not continually doing the internal work while you're doing your external work, then you're leaving yourself vulnerable for being left behind. Really, you're leaving yourself vulnerable to be enormously frustrated in the future. So there is a balance between internal, external focus. Absolutely, there is. But maybe the time has come for you to change it, or change all of that. Maybe you're ready to make a quantum leap. It's a fantastic book, this. So that's all I have for you today. I'll be back again probably on Friday, and we've got some more really good stuff that I want to share with you. So play this game. Play the game of what could be. Play the game of what's possible for you. What is it that you genuinely want? Just mess with that game and make it a game. Then, once you've set a ridiculous goal that you really want, then move into every day with anticipating being surprised, anticipating being blown away by, there's a little bit of proof that I'm going towards what it is that I genuinely want. Play the game. What's it going to cost you? Nothing. And it can be fun, but it works. I've been playing it for a while, and quite a while actually. And as a result, I literally transformed my life from broke in Sydney in 2005 to not broke now. Uh, and so, and all the ideas that that I implemented into my life, they're freely available to everyone to implement in their life. And the problem is most people are so focused on doing that they forget that they need a balance, continuing to understand who they are and how to manage their emotional state so they can grow into the person they came onto this planet to become. So I hope that helps. And if you play the game and you start to get some surprises on a daily basis, just send me a thumbs up in my inbox, and that'll be encouraging. Well, I'm playing that with people that I'm working with to help them with their businesses and that, and so we're sending thumbs up every time something surprises us in the day in the direction of where we're going, in the direction of to support the idea that we're going in the right direction. So cheerio.